Okay, looking at dividing or polynomials, right? We're in the unit of polynomials, but we're doing dividing, right? Division or long division. Okay. So again, let me review what we know when we do long division with just regular numbers, and then we'll get a better sense and see how this is just very similar as when you do it with polynomials. So with regular numbers like number, one example, 78 divided by 3. You'll see the problem set up like that, or you know it also means 78 divided by 3. But since we're doing long division, we're going to set it up like this, right? This is the way we learn to divide. And let's just go over those steps again. Steps. First step is to divide. Divide, right? We start with only look at the first one here and look at the first one. I'm not trying to do 3 into 78. 3 into just the 7 only, not into the whole number, right? Divide is the first step. 3 times, I believe 2, right? Would be close to 7, or 7, but can't go past it. And the second step is what? Once I figure out what this is from division, now you multiply. That's 3 times 2, so that's 6. I multiplied, I do that. And then the last step is what? Subtract. Subtract that, and we get a remainder 1. And we're not finished, so we drop the next number. That would make this an 18 now. And 3 does go into 18, right? 3 goes into 18 6 times. And then you multiply the 3 times the 6, right? That's step 2, to multiply 3 times 6, 18, subtract. And we get the remainder 0. Now, what does that mean? Because now we're going to be examining this. What does it mean when you finish your division and the remainder is 0? What does that mean? This is something really important. When the remainder is 0, that's kind of a good thing, right? What does that mean? What does this mean? What does this mean about this problem here? Well, that means that 3 times 26 is exactly 78, right? That's what it means. 3 times 26 is exactly 78 when you get a remainder 0. Okay, so we're going to start looking at that. Another thing too is, what if you don't get a remainder? Let's say 15 divided by 4. Well, we're going to do long division, so it's like this, right? And the 4 can't go into the 1, so you could put a 0, but 4 into 15 is 3 times, right? Divide first, that's 3. It can go into at most 3 times without going over, that's the divide. Multiply that, that's 12, subtract 3. Now again, what if your remainder is not 0? What does it mean when you get a remainder like this? When it's anything other than a 0? Well, what are you going to be able to say? Well, you're going to be able to say that 4 times 3, and I should have picked another. Well, 4 times this 3 plus the remainder 3 here is equal to what? Is equal to 15. I should have went more, maybe like, let me do a simpler one here because that one kind of Okay, the 2 3s are a little confusing. How about 4 into 9? We know it's going to give us, we know it's 4 times 2, that's 8. You get a remainder 1. Okay, what does this mean? What does this mean that a remainder is a 1? What does all this process mean? Well, you tried to do 9 divided by 4. I didn't put the problem. The problem was 9 divided by 4, right? What does that mean? Well, that means that 4 times 2, this one times this one, plus what? The remainder. It's going to equal to what? Well, this 9 that you try to divide into, right? And that 8 plus 1, yeah. Okay, so we kind of make sense and we get it for numbers, but now we're going to do the same thing, exactly the same thing for polynomials. For polynomials. So I think one of the first easy ones that I did, I'll just do another one again, is something like, let's try something like 18x cubed plus 6x squared minus 4x divided by 2. Well, this goes here. This is a divisor, it goes outside. We start the process. We only look at this one and this one. 2 times what number can give me exactly this? That's going to be a 9. And we need the x cubed, right? 2 times 9x cubed is exactly 18x squared, right? Step 2, multiply. Step 2 is multiply, right? Divide. Now we're multiply, then it's going to be subtract. Multiply, now we subtract. Well, we get 0. Let's go to the next one. So that's just a positive 6x squared. Forget about the 0. 2 times what will give you this? So that's kind of like the division, right? Kind of like, you know the answer and you know one of the factors, you're trying to find the other one. That'll be a plus 3, right? A plus 3, 2 times 3 is 6. Oh, I need x squared though, so is it true that 2 times 3x squared is equal to 6x squared? Yes, it is. But then you subtract and you get 0. Well, we're getting lucky here. This is an easy one, right? And then how do we know we're not finished? Well, because there's another term there. Okay, now it's negative 4x. And 2 times what, right? 2 into this. 2 times what will give me a negative 4? I need a negative 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 and an x, right? And that will give you negative 4x. But when you subtract, and there's already a negative here, that becomes what? Positive. And then you got positive 4 and negative 4 is 0. So there's no remainder. Right? So then this is the answer for the division, but you have to understand what it means, like I was telling you over here. This means that what? If I got remainder 0, right, there's my remainder 0. This means that 2 times the 9x cubed plus 3x squared minus 2x gives you exactly what? Well, this 18x cubed plus 6x squared minus 4x. And when you check the answer, you're just going to see just this part, right? But you got to understand what it means. Now let's try another one. We'll start easy, right? These are like the easier ones. All right, so what if you have something like 40x cubed minus 15x squared plus 10x divided by 5x. Now again, we know that if it's a monomial, we wouldn't do it this way. I'm just going over the long division process here. So this would be what? Set up this long division way. Remember, when you start, you only look at the first one here and the first one here. You don't try to do this into the whole thing. Look at the first one here with the first one here. 5x times what gives you 40x cubed? That would be 8. 5 times 8 is 40. X, I got 1x, and I need 2 more to make x cubed, right? And then you multiply, right? That's step 2, so that's 40x cubed. Subtract, you get 0. Let's go to the next one. Now it's this into this. We're just working at one at a time. What do I need to multiply to a 5 to get to a negative 5? That would be a negative 1, right? 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. I have an x, but I need a total of x squared, so that's going to require that you put another x there. So x, 5x times negative 1x is negative 5x squared, so that's the multiply part. And then when you subtract, well, that changes the sign. Remember, when you subtract, it changes the sign of the bottom one, so it changes it to a plus. And then those will add up to 0. And the last one here. Just 10x, or a positive 10x. And then 5 going into 10x, well, that would be 2, a positive 2. And I already have an x, and there's only one x, don't add any more. So that's plus 10x. Subtract changes the sign of the bottom one. That gives you remainder 0. Okay, those are the easy ones. Let's start doing some of the tough ones. I'll do one of the easier ones now, and I'll do the rest on the second video. Okay. So let's call this one number 1. X squared minus 11x plus 24 divided by x minus 3. Sometimes they just, I'm sorry. For sure they'll put a parentheses on this one. Sometimes they will, and sometimes they will not put it on this one, but I will, right? It looks like it's fancier or something more difficult, but it's not. It's a division problem. Polynomials, and you're dividing. That's what we're doing. This is one way they can present a division of polynomials problem, or what's another way they can write it? What's another way that you'll also see it? X squared minus 11x plus 24 divided by what? X minus 3. Now see, this one is not a monomial. You wouldn't be able to separate these individually because you have a binomial. It's something x plus or minus something else. You can't do it that easier way anymore. We're stuck with doing long division. All right, so let's set up the long division. This is your divisor that goes down on the outside there. This is what you're trying to divide into your dividend, right? And just in case you're trying to figure out what this one's called the quotient. But how do we do these? That's the question. Right, here's the first one. Here's the easy one of these where it's not a monomial. See, this one was a monomial. You wouldn't do it this way anyways. Remember, when it's a monomial, you just divide each one individually. Right? You would do it like this. Right? When it's a monomial. When it's a binomial or a trinomial, which you will see, or even you have to do long division. You're stuck. That's the only way to do it. Oh, actually, I'm lying. There's another way, but let's learn long division. So when it's a binomial like this is the only tricky part. You only look at the very first term. Forget about that, whatever's after that first term there, right? In this case, you just look at the x, ignore that, and then you just look at the first one again, ignore all that other stuff. And then you just ask yourself, remember the steps? Divide. What do I need to multiply to this x to give you that x squared? Well, that's just x, right? You guys agree? X times x is x squared. You just look at the first one here and the first one here. You gotta be able to just ignore everything else. Okay. Now the next step is multiply. But remember, you gotta multiply now this x to everything here, not just this first one that you looked at. So you're really doing x times what? X times x minus 3. You might want to do it on the side, or maybe you can distribute this way. That would be what? X squared minus 3x, wasn't it, right? X squared minus 3x. That's what goes back, that's what goes underneath. All right. So that was step 2, multiply. Step 3 is subtract. Here's the tricky part, guys. When you subtract, which is now this next step, it's like when you have a negative in front of an expression like this, right? That negative, or the subtraction part, in front of a polynomial or a binomial, right? It's gonna have to be distributed. And you know that a negative pretty much just changes the sign. That's a positive x, well that changes to a negative x. That's a positive 6, well that changes to a negative 6, right? So now right here when I do the subtract, I like to do this. Since I have to subtract and that negative gets distributed to these two, and I know that negative just changes the sign. So if this is a positive x squared, I change it to a negative and I circle it so I know that that's the new sign. And this is a negative, and that's going to change sign, so it's going to turn to a positive, and I circle it. That's the new sign. So when you subtract, I'll do it again over here. Right, it was x squared minus 3x, right? It was x squared minus 3x. But again, since you have to subtract and that negative affects this bottom expression, that's why you have to distribute it, and that's how I'm getting this negative x squared, right? Because that's my new sign, negative x squared, and now plus 3x. See, that's my new sign, negative x squared, so that tells me that I changed it already. Negative x squared plus 3x. Now, a positive x squared and a negative x squared will cancel out. And now what's negative 11x and a positive 3x? That's negative 8x. That was the first round. We're not done, right? Because there's this number I have to drop down and put it right there. So now it's negative 8x plus 24. We're going to start the process again. How do you do it when it's like this? Again, you only look at the first one here, and again, only the first one here. What do I need to multiply to this x to get a negative 8x? Well, that would be a negative 8. Negative 8, and that's it, right? Negative 8 times x. Negative 8 times x is what? Negative 8x. Oh, but you have to distribute to both, remember? this negative 8 has to go to both. Negative 8 times what? The x minus 3 is negative 8x plus 24. Right? Some of you can do it here and just go like distribute, distribute. You can do it like that too. I know you can handle that. That's negative 8x plus 24. But don't forget the third step. This step was what? The multiply step, right? We just did this part. This is the multiply step. You have to distribute, but that is the multiply step. And now we got to do the subtract step. Remember what happens when you have a subtract? It changes the sign. So when I do subtract to this bottom expression, that changes this negative to a plus, and I'm going to circle it. I know that's my new sign. And that changes this plus to a what? To a negative. That's my new sign. All right. Now let's add this. What's a negative 8x and a positive 8x? That's 0. Positive 24, take away 24. Well, that's also 0. So your remainder is 0. Ooh, this is key. This is something key right here when the remainder is 0. Remember what I talked about earlier? What does it mean when the remainder is 0? That means that this divisor times the quotient is the dividend, right? So this means what? 8x minus 3 times x minus 8 is exactly what? X squared minus 11x plus 24. Right? When the remainder is 0, that means that it divides into it exactly, right? Okay, but again, when you check your answers for the division, it's just going to say this. It won't tell you all this business. But it will have a more complicated answer when it does give you a remainder. We'll talk about that. I'm going to do this in the next video. This one already took a little bit long.